Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. A special welcome and shout out to all of our tens of millions of new PewDiePie fans who came over because they saw PewDiePie endorse Bernie Sanders and the Bernie or Bust Show. I'm lying. Yeah, I'm lying. We don't have any new PewDiePie fans. I don't think my viewers, my tens of viewers have really gotten this show out in front of all of the PewDiePie fans and stormed onto their comments section and really made the case that we need to save the world not only from boredom but also from Hillary Clinton. But that's a story that I've already talked about. So let's just jump into the idea that the wine track candidates, those who have been waffling and jumping around from candidate to candidate, the comfortable Democrats who really wish they could avoid a grubby populist. I think that Elizabeth Warren's tanking based on her terrible positions on healthcare, and then Pete's lack of I don't know what you could say about Pete at this moment. He's definitely showing his true colors in lots of ways. I think he's showing, like his snarky comments to somebody who asked him about big money donors and in recent conflicts he's had with some of the people in his audiences. I think it's clear that, well, look at the Morning Consult polling here. It looks as though Joe is taking voters from Elizabeth and Pete who just absolutely can't stand Bernie. We've got all these comfortable voters who won't vote for Bernie in any other circumstance than if he's in the general election. And Bernie has lots of other voters, new voters, poor and poorly educated voters, people whose jobs have been outsourced and offshored. What we have is Bernie has his voters that are with him, but Joe seems to be picking up voters that are dropping away from Elizabeth and Pete. And what we need to acknowledge here is that Joe Biden absolutely could end up being the nominee. As much as he's been gaffing lately, as corporate as he is, there are enough voting class, mostly white, mostly educated, and mostly affluent voters. They decide the primary elections. Look at the polling and you see that the landline boomer voters really can give us Joe Biden as the nominee. I was hoping that all of the canvassing and all of the new energy could move things, and we still have a couple of months to look at it, but Joe doesn't seem to be slipping, and there are all kinds of reasons why he should be slipping, and he's just not. And it makes me feel that you vote blue no matter who, folks. Even though you say you would vote for Bernie in the general election if you had to, I don't see Bernie getting nominated at this point. It looks kind of bleak. So what I'm saying now is what Max Blumenthal said quite a while ago. It looks like Donald Trump probably already has won. And that's a foregone conclusion if you've been watching the Bernie or Bust show. This is the piece I wrote for Medium yesterday. Donald Trump probably already has won. Why you can't reason with Bernie or Trump voters in swing states. I quoted this article. Bernie or Bust is not the main story, talking about Bernie or Trump voters in swing states who absolutely aren't going to vote for Joe Biden. And there are enough of them who didn't vote for Hillary last time who will not vote for Joe this time. Just that one fact. If you vote directly for this guy in swing states, you can pretty much guarantee that Biden isn't going to win a general election. And so there you have the orange anal wart. Two different election or Emerson polls this time indicate that Sanders supporters who will vote directly for Donald Trump in the general election, if Sanders is not the Democratic nominee, are even more numerous than last time. So these data here Sanders supporters in 2016, according to the analysis of the 2016 Cooperative Congressional Election Survey, if you look at the Bernie or Trumpers from here, you see this little clump over here, 12%. There are at least 12% this time. And even in states where Joe has more solid support than Hillary did, you've got sticky support for Bernie that's not gonna go away. It's not gonna go to Joe. There are enough never Biden, never corporate. We're just not gonna have a corporate sock puppet Democrat, no matter who. There are enough voters. Bernie or bust is one thing. There may not be enough of us, but there are plenty of Bernie or Trumpers to guarantee, absolutely guarantee, that Biden will do at least as poorly as Hillary Clinton did in 2016. Just to be clear, I'm not a Bernie or Trump voter. You can talk sense to me. You can make me see the error of my ways, but you probably cannot talk sense to those who will vote directly for Donald Trump if Bernie is not the nominee. Bernie or Trump voters are a force of nature. They are a stampede. They are a cyclone. They are toothpaste that will not go back into the tube. Like rioting workers in many other parts of the world, they can be ignored no longer. Donald Trump, therefore, is probably a foregone conclusion unless the electoral leverage afforded by Bernie or Trump voters is accepted as the uncontrollable phenomenon it is, and everyone else who can be reasoned with swings behind Bernie. Yes, politics are ugly. You don't have to like it. You don't even have to like Bernie. But if you, like 70%, more or less, of Democrat-leaning voters want to defeat Donald Trump, there is only one possibility. Whether or not you think that Bernie has problems, he is the world's only hope at this point. Because of the combination of voters who are Bernie or Trump, Bernie or bust, and a ragtag assortment of other grubby populists, no corporate Democrat can win the general election in this election cycle, no matter who. And here's the Bernie or bust show that talks about Max Blumenthal's grim predictions. If we jump over here to Crystal Ball, she is really good at explaining the populist part of Bernie's appeal. I'll let her speak for a second about that.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, look, in a lot of ways, we at Rising get to sort of see how that crossover between the left and independents and more moderate and conservative Democrats and even some Republicans, how that works. You've got 70% of the public, 70%, who say, screw all these people, who have a deep rage and anger at the Democratic establishment, the Republican establishment, at all of D.C. And so when you have Bernie Sanders out there willing to call BS on the Democratic establishment, that lands with a lot of people, and it's not a left-right thing. I mean,
And that's why Biden can't win. Right there. She just neatly summarized. And so we're not bluffing, and the Bernie or bust voters, they're sticky. They're not going anywhere. You can try to talk sense to us, but for these reasons, for economic reasons, if nothing else, for healthcare reasons, for anti-imperialist reasons, lots of reasons, but most of all, just a backlash from the last 60 or 70 years against neoliberalism that Jacobin Magazine is really good at describing. We're not going to vote for Joe Biden. We're just not. So you can keep, you white, affluent, well-educated voters, you can keep Joe Biden in front in the polls if you want to, and you can even ensure that he is the nominee. But you're not going to defeat Trump that way. And I keep getting this privilege argument. What it shows is that you're okay with Donald Trump. That's really what it shows. And if you say anything else, you're just a hypocritical liar. You're okay with Donald Trump, in my mind, until the very moment that you finally switch over in the primaries and tell your landline pollsters, tell them in the primaries that you support Bernie Sanders. Until that moment, I'd say you're fine with Donald Trump because it's incontrovertible. There is no way to avoid what Crystal is saying here. The populist vote will not allow Joe Biden or any corporate Democrat, not Elizabeth, not Pete, not Beto, not anyone else. You're just not going to get any of them. You're not going to get a billionaire like Bloomberg. You're not going to get, and that's just a sorry excuse for, it's just showing how afraid the plutocrats are right now. You're not going to get any of those. You're only going to get Donald Trump if you keep trying to keep Biden ahead in the polls and get him through the nominating process.
We're digging into some of the crosstabs, and maybe some of you all saw this, in New Hampshire, which is an open primary, and the three candidates who have the most crossover Trump voter support are Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders, and Andrew Yang. Why? Because all three of them are anti-establishment. They're very different ideologically. They're very different candidates stylistically, ideologically, etc. The one common thread is that they are willing to call bullshit on the Democratic establishment. They are not of the Democratic establishment. And that there is a massive constituency for people who are just willing to be honest about the failures of power, whether it's on the left or whether it's on the right.
Now you look at that, you look at the comfortable Democrats. They don't want to flush the Democratic establishment. And that's the privileged part. They feel that the Democratic establishment has done well by them. They don't have to bus their kids to inner city schools. They don't have to have inner city kids in their schools. That's one big indication. The wine track candidates are fine with the Democratic establishment. They're fine with Barack Obama. They're fine with Hillary Clinton. They're fine with Bill Clinton. And they're not willing to admit, because of their tribalism and their woke signaling, they're not willing to admit that W and Ronnie, Captain Ronnie, and Maggie Thatcher, while we're at it, are no different than Obama or any of the centrist neoliberal Democrats. And they haven't suffered that much. And those who haven't suffered are even willing to let us have Donald Trump again, it seems.
And so I really don't think it's more complicated than that. I also do think, and I worked in West Virginia. I used to live in Kentucky. I was at Bernie's rally in Kentucky, so I got to see him in action there. And there's such a lack of understanding of how those issues around labor, around union rights, healthcare. I mean, you could almost not be on economic issues. It would be hard to be too far left on economic issues to land in most of the country. And so the fact that he leads with that and it connects in this very just like real and visceral, emotional way. His language isn't, it's not the overly intellectual way. It doesn't come off as Harvard. It comes off as I'm meeting you where you are. I'm hearing you. I'm addressing your concerns, and I'm going to fight for you. It's incredibly powerful. But yeah, I think, the reason why I think he would be the best candidate to go up against Trump is because of that anti-establishment branding, the fact that he speaks about populist economic issues in such a powerful and accessible way. And also because no one's going to be able to accuse him of being corrupt, right, or being corporate owned, or any of the things that that Hillary walked right into, that Biden is an absolutely easy mark for. Like,
never will I cheat on you, as Travis Scott sings. Yeah,
indeed.
Exactly.
I mean, you can just with Biden, you could just roll out the same playbook that he used against Hillary Clinton. It's not going to work with Bernie. And for all the oh my God, they're going to call him a socialist. Well, first of all, they're going to call these people socialists, number one. Number two, let them, and then let's have a debate about economics, because that is the place where we actually are strongest in places across the country.
I mean,
and there you go. That what it shows you is the comfortable, diehard blue dog Democrats are not leftist at all. They're moderate Republicans. Anyone who could vote for Joe Biden is a moderate Republican in Democrat clothing. They just have the signaling, the woke signaling. and the identity politics. What they really don't want is true leftist policies that allow the bottom part of the economic ladder to rise up. They don't want people climbing that ladder. They're zero-sum thinkers. And you zero-sum thinkers, you're going to try to give us Joe Biden as a nominee, and then you're going to get Donald Trump, and probably that's not so bad in your mind. So then the only other step is pitchforks. That's what it's looking like. And so look at this orange menace here, and don't blink, and that's fine. I assume you aren't blinking, and you're going to get him, and that's how it's going to be. And then we'll see what happens in this country. We'll see if it starts to look like the rest of the world, like Puerto Rico, like Bolivia, like Ecuador, like Iran and Iraq, like other places, Paris, where unrest is bubbling over, and the oligarchs. I think the oligarchs are going to start to tremble, and you cronies of the oligarchs, you need to start to tremble. Your comfortable neighborhoods may not be so comfortable going forward if you foist Donald Trump on the world again. Our climate is certainly not going to be healthy. Our climate is going to be on the brink of destruction, but economically also, you're going to see that it can't keep going the way it is indefinitely. So with that happy thought, keep on burning. I hope to see you tomorrow. Please teach the Bernie or Bust Train song to as many boomers as you can. Please get all the PewDiePie subscribers you can to come to the Bernie or Bust show. And let's keep on keeping on, keep our sense of humor, and never give up. See you tomorrow, I hope.
Get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Come get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board